All right, so for more on this, let's bring in Katie Pavlich, Fox News contributor, and Caroline Downey, National Review staff writer. What Jefferson just said, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why is it the Democrats are always on the wrong side? What don't they understand about recidivism, about bad policies, the lack of law and order? I guess he wants social workers and not cops like Mamdani the commie. What don't they understand about a tragic thing like this?
It used to be they thought this was a political winner for them. They thought bringing in 20 million new people into the country would be something that Americans thought was a good idea. That has clearly changed. And Democrats have totally planted themselves on the side of being pro-criminal, whether it's people here who are American citizens or people who are here illegally, especially if they're here illegally. The Democratic Party does not believe that we should have borders, that we should have sovereignty. They think that anybody who wants to come here, regardless of your criminal record, regardless of your victimization of Americans inside of their communities, regardless if you assault law enforcement officers, that you get to stay. And not only do you get to stay, you get to take from the American taxpayer through benefits, whether it's hospitals, getting paid to live in a hotel in New York City, a bus ticket to go from one city to another to commit additional crimes. And the worst part about this is the sanctuary city policy. Democrats have been screaming from LA to New York, like Hakeem Jeffries or the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, about ICE raids in their cities. Well, there wouldn't be any ICE raids if these cities weren't harboring criminal aliens who have violent records, including murder and rape. So ICE agents have to go into these communities rather than going to a jail and calmly transferring these illegal immigrants into federal custody. They now have to go raid at work sites and elsewhere. So they created this problem on a number of levels, and now they're dealing with the consequences of it.
Caroline, on top of all that, these were repeaters, recidivists. Nobody goes to jail in New York City. They have prison records and criminal records as long as their arm, and nobody does a thing about it. And this mayoral race is all about that, okay? Mamdani the commie wants to defund the police and use social workers. Andrew Cuomo is a guy who signed the law. No bail, no jail, no nothing. Eric Adams, you know, a decidedly mixed bag. He never really stood up, particularly on these other issues. The only guy in the race who wants law and order is Curtis Sliwa. But this is what you get. These guys, time and time again, violent criminals.
And Zohran Mamdani's message to young women who are innocently walking about the street, who might become the next victim of a recidivist criminal illegal alien, is we're okay with a little collateral damage. If we can get the humanitarian cause of open borders to be something that is enacted. And I think about Zohran Mamdani and how popular he was with Gen Z. It's pretty tragic for many reasons, Larry. There was one influencer who went viral a couple years ago because she was one of those female victims of the arbitrary punchings on the street by a criminal. This wasn't an illegal alien, but we know from this case that there are plenty of illegal alien criminals walking about. You know, the bail reform policies are exacerbating all of this. It's like this perfect storm of, you know, the illegal immigration issue colliding with the soft on crime issue. And that influencer I just mentioned, she endorsed Mamdani with a glowing report 2 years later. So, I mean, a lot of these young kids, they don't understand how their policies that they support from Mamdani translate to a worse quality of life. They're almost delusional to an extent about that. And it's very sad to see.
But Katie, I got Mamdani too here in Minneapolis. All right, Omar Fateh, another socialist. He won the Democratic Farmer Labor. He won the Democratic nomination for mayor at their convention. Whether he stole it or not, I don't know. 35-year-old son of Somali immigrants who's been running an insurgent campaign and calls himself a socialist. So it's spreading. This disease, the Mamdani is a common disease, is spreading.
So there's little assimilation there into Americanism. It's bringing socialist policies from abroad and implementing them in cities across the country. You know, we've seen this play out before. We've seen the horror stories from Cuba where young people were literally shot in the head for daring to do things like listen to music. We saw property confiscated, which is what this young man in Minnesota and Mamdani believes in New York City. These are not fantasy ideas that have never been laid out before. Property was confiscated, not from corporations, not from the evil corporations that we keep hearing about, but from individual people in places like Cuba, Venezuela. This does not end well when it comes to government officials enforcing this kind of socialism or communism. But you know what? we live in a democracy and a republic, and if Democrats in these cities want to continue to vote for these people, then they will have to deal with the consequences of what they're implementing.
Caroline, since I don't want to talk about Gen Zers anymore, your crowd.
The millennials always used to get all of the hard grief, so I'm glad that Gen Z is now getting.
No, I can't do that. I just had a different question. Stephen Colbert is going to be off the air, big lefty that he is. Who's next? Is Jimmy Kimmel next? Is Jimmy Fallon next? Who's next? The only guy who does well late night is my pal Greg Gutfeld, right?
That's
Conservative humor wins, left-wing humor loses. These guys, by the way, I would watch this story all weekend with Colbert. He wasn't put out because of his politics. He was put out because he was losing $50 million a year. Well, one reason he was losing $50 million a year, I guess, I never watched it, wouldn't even occur to me to watch it, is nobody was watching him because of his stupid left-wing opinions.
Imagine that.
But that's neither. Now, who goes next? Does Kimmel go next? Does Fallon go next?
I don't know about that, but any successor to Stephen Colbert who doesn't repeat the same Trump derangement syndrome bit over and over and over and expecting the audience to love it will be an improvement. And to your point, it's not this big conspiracy, this ouster that somehow the Trump administration influenced Paramount to let go of Stephen Colbert. He just wasn't profitable. He was losing $40 million a year, so it was a net loss to the company. So I'd actually argue that they kept him because of his left-wing politics for so long, and then ultimately the finances caught up to him.
100 people, a staff of 100 people for bad jokes.
It's really? It's a good example of why Democrats were so upset about defunding of NPR. Right? They think that they don't want to do math. They don't want to understand profit and revenue. They just think they need things on the air that benefit them politically, where their narrative and propaganda can be pushed out to a number of people every single night. And Colbert was not public broadcasting, but for Democrats now to be panicking as if it was, shows a lot about their ideas of what media should be.
Close to it. I don't know. It's kind of public broadcasting adjacent.
Yes.
Okay, CBS. But you know what? Somebody's got to understand about consumer demand. If the consumer doesn't buy your product, you got a big problem.
And if you turn into a comedy show and it's not funny, you're being sold something you're not wanting to watch.
Katie Pavlich, Caroline Downey, thank you, ladies. Appreciate it very much.